Welcome to live show 73, 28th of August 2024. Tyranny, Freedom's Last Stand. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get on with the show. Good evening and welcome back, my friends. Tonight we delve deeper into the saga of Pavel Durov, not just a tech entrepreneur's tale, but as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between freedom, tyranny, and the control in our digital age. Let's revisit the arrest of Pavel Durov in France, a move that's just not about legal proceedings, but strikes at the heart of our digital rights. President Macron's statement, while couched in legalistic terms, fails to address the chilling effect this has on the innovation of free speech. Here's a man, Durov, whose platform Telegram has been a beacon for those seeking privacy and uncensored communication, yet he faces a barrage of charges. Those charges are refusal to communicate necessary information for legal interceptions, complicity in distributing pornographic images of minors, offering tools or data to damage automated data processing systems, criminal association with intent to commit offences, complicity in drug trafficking, money laundering, fraud, terrorism-related charges. These charges paint a picture of just not a tech entrepreneur, but of a criminal mastermind, according to the prosecution. Does this mean any product used by criminals has the same effect on the CEO and owners? ISIS loves Toyotas, so are the CEOs of Toyota liable for terrorism? Here's a twist in the saga. The United Arab Emirates, where Durov holds citizenship, has stepped into the fray. The UAE Foreign Ministry has demanded that France provide Durov with urgent access to all necessary consular services. This isn't just diplomatic protocol, it's a statement. It underscores the international implications of this case, highlighting Durov's status not just as a tech mogul, but as a citizen of multiple nations, including Russia, France, the UAE, and St. Kitts and Nevis. Russia has also asked for access, but France has refused. But the plot thickens with Chris Pavlovsky of Rumble entering the fray. In a bold accusation, Pavlovsky has called out President Macron for hypocrisy regarding freedom of speech. He stated, "When you say you are committed to freedom of expression, you are lying. We have a letter from France that proves this, without a doubt. We had to shut down Rumble in France because you had no commitment to the freedom of expression." This accusation doesn't just challenge Macron's narrative, it expresses what many see as a double standard in the application of freedom of speech principles. The hypocrisy here is palpable. The Western world, quick to condemn Belarus for the Protasevich incident, remains silent on Durov. Why? Because Telegram's resistance to surveillance threatens the very control mechanisms these governments wish to enforce. This selective outrage exposes a double standard where freedom is celebrated only when it aligns with certain geopolitical interests. The rise in Telegram's downloads post-arrest isn't just a spike in numbers, it's a digital protest, a silent roar against encroaching tyranny. Users are flocking to it, not just for its features, but as a symbol of defiance against a system that seeks to monitor, control, and censor. And let's not overlook the broader implication. India's investigation into Telegram hints at a coordinated global effort to rein in platforms that resist control. This isn't about national security, it's about maintaining a narrative, controlling dissent, and ensuring that only approved versions of truth prevail. The hackers' response with DDoS attacks on French government sites, that's not just cyber vandalism, it's a digital uprising, a message that the internet community is watching, reacting, and resisting. Here are the top 5 possible reasons enriched with the pulse from the streets of X. 1. Censorship and suppression of freedom of speech. The arrest might be a calculated move by Western powers to gain control over Telegram's encryption, aiming to monitor and censor online activities. Critics argue this is part of a broader strategy to stifle dissent against Western foreign policies, especially in conflict zones like Ukraine and Gaza. Voices across the spectrum have highlighted this as an assault on free speech, signaling a chilling effect on digital freedoms. 2. Blackmail. The speculation that Durov's detention could be an attempt to coerce him into providing backdoor access to Telegram. This theory suggests that his release might be contingent on compromising the app's security, therefore allowing surveillance by interested parties. Some ex-posts even suggest that Durov's refusal to give the US a backdoor was the real trigger for his arrest. 3. Competition with WhatsApp. Telegram has been gaining ground on WhatsApp, a service owned by Meta, an American company. Could this arrest be a strategic move to eliminate competition under the guise of illegal action? This perspective sees Durov's situation as a corporate battle played out on the global stage. 4. Means to distract attention. Some argue that Durov's arrest serves as a distraction from other geopolitical failures or to shift public focus away from controversial military engagements like Gaza. By targeting the figure like Durov, the narrative could be redirected towards internal security or digital governance issues. 5. Russophobia. Lastly, there's an element of Russophobia at play. Durov's Russian origin might make him a convenient target in the ongoing geopolitical chess game between the West and Russia. His refusal to cooperate with law enforcement on what he considers principal grounds might have marked him as a problematic figure in the eyes of those who see Russia as an adversary. Maduro calls for Durov's release. Durov's arrest fits into the policy of maximum pressure and arm twisting of alternative communication networks, says Venezuela's President Maduro. The arrest of Telegram founder Pavel Durov in France is an attack on human rights to freedom of speech. This was stated by former US intelligence officer Edward Snowden. Quote, Durov's arrest is an assault on basic human rights, freedom of speech and association. I'm surprised and deeply saddened that Macron has descended into the level of taking hostages as a means of gaining access to private communications. This humiliates not only France, but the whole world, end quote, Snowden wrote on the social network X. Here's where we stand at the crossroads. With Durov potentially sidelined, Telegram's future and by extension our digital freedoms hang in the balance. Will his team fold under pressure or will they stand firm? This isn't just about one platform, it's about whether we, as digital citizens, have the right to privacy, free speech, and innovation without the looming threat of being criminalized for our tools or our thoughts. In closing, Durov's arrest isn't merely a legal battle, it's a battle for the soul of the internet. It's about whether we allow digital spaces to become another arena for tyranny, where freedom is not just curtailed, but criminalized. As we watch this unfold, remember, today it's Durov, but tomorrow it could be any of us. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember, in the fight for freedom, silence is complicity. This just in, the French government has just lost $17 billion over the arrest of Pavel Durov. The UAE froze a deal to purchase 80 Rafale fighter jets and says that the arrest of Pavel Durov is outrageous. Pavel is a citizen of the UAE and a close friend of the Deputy Prime Minister, Hamed Al Maktoum. More news just in. We've just got some intriguing developments in the case of Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, who was arrested in Paris. According to the report by the respected French investigative newspaper, Le Canard Enchaîné, Durov claimed during his police investigation that he was in France for a dinner invitation from none other than President Emmanuel Macron himself. Now here's where it gets interesting. The narrative suggests that this dinner invite might have been a setup, luring Durov into the French custody. But hold on, the Élysée Palace, Macron's office, has quickly jumped to deny these allegations. They're saying no dinner invite from Macron here. This story has caught the fire on social media with figures like the leader of La Patriots Party, Florent Philippot, not holding back. He's demanding explanations from Macron, accusing him of deceit and suggesting this was all about silencing voices of free expression. So was this a presidential ploy or was this coincidence? The French government insists it's just the latter, but the public and political figures are crying foul. This saga continues to unfold. We'll keep you posted on any further twists. Stay tuned because in the world of international politics and tech, things can change in the blink of an eye. And we've got some urgent news for all Telegram users out there, especially if you're on an iPhone or iPad. According to a recent announcement, Telegram has warned its users that Apple might soon remove Telegram app from its devices without any prior notice. Yes, you heard that right. Now, Telegram isn't taking this lying down. They've advised users to tweak some settings on their iPhones to prevent Apple from remotely deleting or disabling the app. These settings are straightforward and essentially lock down Apple's ability to update or alter Telegram's functioning on your device, as you can see here. Here's why this matters. Apple has already been censoring certain Telegram channels, content that you might still access on other platforms like Android or PC, but not on Apple devices. This move by Apple could be seen as an escalation of that control. But let's dive deeper. Just days ago, as we know, Telegram's founder Pavel Durov was arrested in France. Coincidence? Many think not. With the rise in Telegram's popularity, especially among those seeking privacy and free speech, it's becoming clear who's in the crosshairs. And it's not just Telegram. Figures like Elon Musk and platforms like X are also under scrutiny. The core issue here is privacy. The powers that be do not want us communicating freely without their ears on every conversation. So what can you do? First, install the Telegram app on your phone, on your iPhone or iPad now, if you haven't already. Then follow the privacy settings guide provided by Telegram to ensure you, not Apple, control what stays on your device. This isn't about the app, it's about who controls your digital rights. Stay tuned because this is a battle for privacy, free speech. Every move counts. Here it is. Go to our Telegram channel to see it. In the latest Tucker Carlson interview, this time with Robert Kennedy, they discussed Telegram's do-off and freedom of speech. Just watch it here.
And encouraging France, Macron, to arrest the owner and founder of Telegram, Pavel Durov, who's now, as of right now, in a French prison. That seems like, that's the hallmark of dictatorship, it sounds to me.
Yeah, well, we've lost Europe. Europe does not have free speech. Look what's happened to Elon Musk. And Elon Musk should be the hero of the Democratic Party. Of the old Democratic Party, he would be the hero. Somehow he became a villain because he was actually the only platform that would allow free speech on his platform. And he's now become a villain because of it, because the Democratic Party does not believe in the people. If you don't believe in free speech, it means because you don't trust the people. You don't trust them to figure it out on their own, to have information on which they can base their ideas and their notions and their beliefs.
And their votes.
And that the government has to protect them from dangerous information, from things that might put bad ideas into their heads. And it's very patronizing, but it's also very manipulative and conniving, and really it's exactly the opposite of democracy. And you will not find a single Democrat who will criticize it.
In keeping with tonight's theme of tyranny, next we dive into the revelation that's sending shockwaves through the political and tech spheres, even though we already knew it. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, none other than Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, has admitted to what many have suspected for years. Zuckerberg confessed that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, should not have demoted the Hunter Biden laptop story. This admission comes after years of story being labelled as Russian disinformation. Now let's unpack this. Zuckerberg's letter states, it's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. Yeah, sure. But here's where it gets spicy. Remember the 2020 election? The FBI had warned Meta about supposed Russian disinformation campaign involving the Biden family. Yet it turns out the Hunter Biden laptop story was a legitimate story all along, as we already knew. Oh, the irony. Very story that could have swayed the voters was suppressed under the guise of fighting disinformation. But wait, there's more. Zuckerberg also revealed that in 2021, the Biden administration was pressuring Meta to censor content related to COVID-19. He now regrets not being more outspoken against this government pressure, admitting, I believe the government pressure was wrong. This isn't just about Meta or Zuckerberg. Elon Musk, never one to shy away from controversy, has branded Meta's actions as potential First Amendment violation. And let's not forget, Mark Zuckerberg and his wife donated $400 million to assist US election officers. Some say this was to set up a mail-in ballot system that, according to critics, was used to manipulate the 2020 election. So was Mark Zuckerberg a puppet of political pressure, or was he an active participant in shaping the narrative? Did he betray his users for political gain? These are questions we must ask. In the age of information where tech giants can sway elections, this revelation by Zuckerberg isn't just a footnote in history, it's a wake-up call. As we continue to unravel the layers of influence, power, and perhaps betrayal in the digital age, stay informed, stay vigilant, follow us on Telegram. Next, the escalating conflict between Russia and Ukraine with developments that could reshape the war's landscape. Massive missile strikes by Russia. Over the past few days, Russia has launched what's being described as one of the largest aerial offensives against Ukraine, targeting electricity centres and military installations. These strikes have not only crippled parts of Ukraine's power grid, but also aimed at Ukraine's military backbone, intention to weaken Ukraine's defence capabilities and morale as winter approaches. Ukraine's new combatants. In a bid to bolster its forces, Ukraine has begun training women in the UK for combat roles. This move signifies a broadening of Ukraine's military recruitment, tapping into a demographic not traditionally seen in the front lines. It's a stark reflection of the war's toll and Ukraine's determination to defend its sovereignty. Let's watch the Sky News clip.
From civilians to soldiers, Ukrainian recruits being taught the skills for frontline combat. On the 33rd anniversary of their country's independence from the Soviet Union, these men and women are on British soil, learning how to fight for their freedom.
We're teaching Ukrainians to use rifles, to shoot better, to shoot straight, and to shoot at distance. We're teaching them counter-explosive ordnance. What does that mean? That's protecting themselves from the threat of mines, which are clearly prevalent, highly prevalent now in Ukraine, as well as to protect themselves, but to protect the civilians as well.
45,000 Ukrainians have been trained by Allied forces since the Russian invasion began 2.5 years ago.
These recruits are ordinary men and women. Some have only been in the UK a matter of days, and now here they are in the midst of this intensive training in the woods in the English countryside, being shown skills which may save their lives.
There was a propaganda piece from Sky News in the UK. This video circulating online shows a Russian soldier discussing the destruction of a US Abrams tank.
Петушня американская Абрамс, блядь. Хуета ебаная. Она еще, тварь, горит нахуй, что-то дымится. Уебище, блядь.
Ukraine's request for deeper strikes. In a significant escalation, Ukraine has reportedly sought permission from the US to use American-supplied weapons for deep strikes into Russian territory. This request, if granted, could dramatically shift the conflict's dynamics, bringing the war closer to Russian civilians and potentially escalating international involvement and NATO. However, the Pentagon has maintained its position. Ukrainians can use American aid for self-defense against attacks from abroad. But as far as long-range strikes into deep Russian territory are concerned, our policy has not changed. This statement underscores the delicate balance the US is trying to maintain, supporting Ukraine while avoiding direct confrontation with Russia. Pentagon spokesman is Pat Ryder.
He said yesterday that there should be no restrictions on the range of weapons for Ukraine. He said this before, but he added that the terrorists, referencing Russia, have no such restrictions. Does the Pentagon agree with that statement?
Well, look, I won't speak for President Zelensky. Clearly, he's made his views and perspective well known, both publicly and privately. From a U.S. perspective, we're going to continue to consult closely with our Ukrainian partners as well as our allies and partners around the world on how best to support Ukraine towards the ultimate end state of ensuring a free and sovereign Ukraine that can deter future aggression from Russia.
And so are there still restrictions on Ukrainian weapons provided by the United States?
So our policies haven't changed. You've heard us say that the Ukrainians can use U.S. Security assistance to defend themselves from cross-border attacks, in other words, counterfire. But as it relates to long-range strike, deep strikes into Russia, our policy has not changed. Let me go back out to the phone here.
The conflict's evolution shows a deepening complexity. Russia's intensified attacks on infrastructure aim at breaking Ukraine's spirit, while Ukraine's training of women and its push for deeper strikes illustrate a desperate step to fight back with whatever means available, reminiscent of Germany in 1945. And now to the USA. We've got some news that's stirring the political pot ahead of the presidential debate coming up. Firstly, a video has surfaced that's causing quite a stir. In it, Vice President Kamala Harris appears to make an astonishing claim that over 200 million Americans have died from COVID-19. Now let's put that into perspective. That's more than 2/3 of the US population. Clearly this claim has raised eyebrows and sparked immediate fact-checking efforts. Here's the video.
We're in the middle of a crisis caused by this pandemic that is a public health crisis. We're looking at over 220 million Americans who just in the last several months died. We are in the midst of a public health epidemic that has taken the lives of over 220 million Americans in just the last several months.
So there you go. 2/3 of the US population is now dead. In a surprising twist, former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has thrown her support behind Donald Trump. Yes, you heard that right. In this video, which we'll just show, Gabbard endorsed Trump, highlighting a significant crossover in political allegiances. This following Robert Kennedy also supporting Trump. Following this, both Gabbard and Trump were seen discussing this endorsement in a TikTok video, which we'll show as well, signaling a new dynamic in the political landscape. Let's watch them.
It is a privilege to be here with all of you, my brothers and sisters in uniform, especially on this day of all days. I had the privilege of joining President Trump this morning at Arlington Cemetery, where he joined 2 Gold Star families and loved ones of Staff Sergeant Hoover and Sergeant G, both of whom were 2 of the 13 killed in the Abbey Gate attack 3 years ago today in Kabul. And I can tell you, as we were there, as he laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, joining these Marines' loved ones, I felt the sorrow that he shared with them in their loss. I felt and saw his sincere appreciation for these servicemen and women who paid the ultimate price, and their loved ones who continue to grieve to this day. This is personal for me, as I know it is for so many of you here. This is real. It's not just words. I first deployed to Iraq in 2005 with the Hawaii Army National Guard as a member of Charlie Med. As those of you who were deployed during that time know, it was the height of the war, and sadly, we took many casualties. And every day we were confronted with that high human cost of war and that sadness as we boarded the plane when we left, that we were leaving some of our brothers and sisters behind, only to lose others when we got home to suicide. So I mean what I say when I share with you that I know that President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears for every single one of our lives. Whether you're a soldier, you're an airman, a Marine, sailor, or a coastie, he keeps us in his heart in the decisions that he makes. We saw this through his first term in the presidency, when he not only didn't start any new wars, he took action to de-escalate and prevent wars. He exercised the courage that we expect from our commander-in-chief in exhausting all measures of diplomacy, having the courage to meet with adversaries, dictators, allies, and partners alike in the pursuit of peace, seeing war as a last resort. The truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris. In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief. Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its political opponents and undermining our civil liberties, weaponizing our very institutions against those they deem as a threat. Kamala Harris has done this, over the last 3.5 years. She won't hesitate to continue that if she is elected as president. President Trump has been their first and foremost target in this because they don't want us as voters to even have the option to vote for him. I've been their most recent target, added to a secret domestic terror watch list after exposing the truth about what kind of dangers we would face if Kamala Harris is elected as president. We as Americans must stand together to reject this anti-freedom culture of political retaliation and abuse of power. We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people, our freedom, and our future. I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I'm grateful to be here today with you, Mr. President. We may not agree on everything, but we agree on a lot. And most importantly, we agree on the threat that Kamala Harris as president poses with her policies and how she will continue to take away our freedom.
I really appreciate your endorsement. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to make America great again.
The Middle East. Now we delve into the complex dynamics of the Israeli-Hezbollah conflict, a saga that has roots deep into the geopolitical fabric of the Middle East. Hezbollah's Israel's persistent dilemma. Months of simmering tensions between Hezbollah and Israel boiled over this weekend, yet both sides have managed to step back from the brink of all-out war. Israeli officials have long warned of a significant operation against Hezbollah, but any large-scale engagement could prove costly for Israel. Here's why. Origins and evolution. Hezbollah, born from the chaos of Israel's 1982 invasion of Lebanon, has grown into a formidable force. Initially a collection of resistant groups, it's now a Shia Islamist political party and a militia with significant political clout in Lebanon, holding about 12% of the parliamentary seats and commanding a 100,000-strong militia. Its presence, especially in southern Lebanon, has made Israel's most persistent adversary. Its military prowess. Labeled the world's most heavily armed non-state actor, Hezbollah's strength lies not just in its numbers, but it's in its weaponry, tactics, and discipline. Estimates suggest it possesses over 1 million missiles, from short-range rockets to sophisticated anti-tank and anti-ship missiles. This arsenal, combined with surveillance and strike drones, possesses a significant threat, especially through saturation attacks that could overwhelm Israel's defenses and its Iron Dome. Underground networks. Hezbollah's tunnel system in southern Lebanon is reportedly far more advanced than Hamas's in Gaza. This network, likened to a land of tunnels, provides strategic advantages, allowing fighters to move undetected and strike from unexpected directions, complicating any ground offensive. It is said that North Korea has helped them build these tunnels and bunkers. Its technical superiority. Hezbollah fighters are renowned for their training and discipline, often outmatching regular Arab armies in previous conflicts with Israel. The 2006 Lebanon War is a testament to this, where despite being vastly outnumbered and outgunned, Hezbollah inflicted significant casualties and material losses on the IDF, showcasing their ability to wage effective asymmetric warfare. The current standoff. This weekend's exchanges were significant, yet both sides have signaled a reluctance for escalation. Israel's preemptive strikes and Hezbollah's retaliatory strikes have led to a tense equilibrium. However, the underlying issues remain unresolved, with Hezbollah's strategic capabilities and Israel's military might creating a volatile mix. Looking ahead, the situation remains precarious. While both sides have shown restraint, the underlying conflict, fueled by decades of enmity, political ideologies, and regional power plays, suggests that this is merely a pause in a long-standing confrontation. Please stay with us as we continue to monitor this evolving situation where every move could either lead to a fragile peace or ignite a broader conflict in the region. Again, follow us on Telegram, subscribe to this channel to get notifications when we are live, and please share this video. Tonight we have Drew from Let Me Look TV in London, and we will discuss what the hell is happening in the UK. Hi Drew, thanks for being on the show. First of all, where can people catch you on social media?
Let Me Look TV, shouting into the void, mostly on X.
Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, Let Me Look TV as well. Mostly X and YouTube.
Okay, cool. Okay, we've got 3 talking points tonight. Let's start with censorship and social media crackdowns. Increased surveillance and legal actions. The UK has seen a notable uptick in arrests related to social media posts, particularly under laws aimed at preventing hate speech or misinformation. This trend has sparked debates over freedom of speech versus the need for online safety. Critics argue that these laws are being used to suppress dissent, with cases where individuals have faced legal repercussions for posts deemed offensive or inciting, even if not directly threatening. This shift towards monitoring and punishing online speech has led to accusations of the government moving towards authoritarian control over digital expression, potentially stifling legitimate political discourse. So, Drew, what have you seen in the UK?
Well, I mean, what's been going on for some time now with various online bills, etc., has been very worrying. There has been a long-term narrative, I would say, to kind of warp the issue. And it is very, but at the same time, it is very worrying because, you know, social media has become the kind of social commons, as it were. You know, we chat online much more than, say, we used to chat to each other down at the pub or whatever, or in the working men's clubs, etc. You know, those kind of institutions have disappeared, and we've moved online. And you know, we live in a society that is supposed to be a free society with freedom of speech and opinion, and traditionally we have had a situation in the UK where you can say what you like, and you know, we've relied on people's common sense to make up their minds about what is acceptable or not. And you know, that has in the past sort of managed itself. I suppose there is the argument that we've got much further reach individually now, but you know, I think that comes down to better contextualizing and educating people that, you know, it is just someone shouting online. They're just as annoying as someone who's drunk shouting outside your window at 5 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't make, you know, them any more valid or invalid. And you know, the way that controls have been put in place, that governments are coercing individual platforms, independent platforms. I mean, if you know, you could argue that if you don't want to use Facebook or Twitter or whatever, don't go on there. I mean, you know, in the case of Facebook, that's, you know, I've never had a Facebook account because it always just looked like bad news to me. But at the same time, you know, we should have the freedom, or at least the belief, that when we do go online and share something, that it's actually getting somewhere, which, you know, you can't always be guaranteed of. So we're facing both stealth censorship and narrative management, and what appears to be a sort of a quickening in pace of enabling laws to criminalize people. I mean, there have been some people saying some very misguided and ignorant things online, and they've been jailed for it. But you know, that is ridiculous. just as trying to prosecute people for quietly praying in the street is ridiculous, but that seems to be where we've come to.
Yeah, there seems to be two-tier policing in the UK, whereas people with different groups get policed differently.
I mean, that is a hot potato. I think I've seen policing of protest, etc., handled both roughly and in a friendly manner for pretty much all the causes. Really, it depends on what's going on at the time. I think that the way the police might deal with a protest on one occasion or another has a lot more to do with what's going on around the protest and whether they want to make a big deal out of a certain group protesting at any particular time or another. And they can, shape the narrative of whether they're far right, crazy people, or whether they're, a wonderful, friendly group gathering in London for the righteous whatever, what people are standing for and how they're policed, doesn't really seem to follow any particular logic within itself. But I mean, what has happened and what is very apparent is the overstating of this sort of far right narrative when there are a lot of people going out and protesting who are just middle England normal people who are just scared basically of what's happening in this country. There are things happening in this country that are real, that aren't conspiracy theories, that are really impacting on certain parts of the UK.
With this mass illegal immigration, have you seen changes around your area?
I mean, I live in one of the probably most multicultural areas in London, and I have done for 30 years. I live in South London in the Peckham area. And I mean, it's no exaggeration to say that in the last few years it has transformed. Absolutely. I mean, I barely hear English spoken when I walk out in the street now, outside my own flat, and whilst
why do you think
it's always been a very much a multi-ethnic community. There has been, a sort of everyone speaks English, everyone's here to be part of society. But
why do you think lately, many years, people don't integrate and start speaking the local language? Because as you know, in the old we'll talk about it in the old days. Immigrants used to come in, same in Australia, and we had a lot of, like, for example, Italians, Greeks. As soon as they came in, they made sure they learnt English and integrated and became Australians. Now it seems to immigrants in Australia, UK, and other places, when they come, they just don't even bother.
I mean, I think that the issue, certainly around where I live, is that there are just so many people coming that, that they are, they're at their own mobile community, and, they slip into, they stay amongst themselves. I mean, I guess that could be true of, when there was mass immigration into the US, you'd have, the Italian neighborhood and the Chinese neighborhood or whatever. But, they thought of the home country and their here country. They were here to sort of, here being in America to, build a future and stuff. And I just don't see that. I see a lot of people around hanging about on the street with not much to do. And, you know, I guess if you've got enough of your own mates who speak your own language, then it's much easier just to hang around with people that you're used to. I guess that's it, you know, and also that there are just so many people that how would they integrate? How would any local community accommodate that? If that's something that needs to be done, you know, I mean, it's I mean, it's such a complex and deep sort of problem.
And the other problem, of course, in the UK is if you try and discuss it, you're far right or a racist, it seems.
I mean, certainly, I think that one of the issues that has made people very sort of self-censory is race. And, you know, I mean, I've lived in the area I live in now, choice, mostly, I suppose you could say, circumstance, but I've been quite happy to live here for the vast majority of the time that I've lived in South London. It's, you know, in a sense, its sort of diversity was part of its appeal. But it's not a case of diversity anymore. It's a case of, you know, feeling like a stranger in a strange land almost. And, you know, I'm sure that there are people that I know that, you know, I would consider friends that would be shocked at me sort of saying that. And, you know, I mean, it's just really difficult. You just cannot speak common sense on certain subjects anymore. And in fact, if you do try to speak up in certain cases, you know, it can land you a serious jail term. I mean, the way that the recent disturbances have been portrayed in the media and overstated and over-egged and whipped up and made into this huge thing. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling, really. You have to wonder if you know these actions and comments by Keir Starmer are simply, you know, distraction. You know, something to distract from the illegitimacy of his premiership. I mean, we've been hoodwinked into this guy's got a landslide. He got 1 million less of the popular vote than Corbyn did, who lost the election. I don't think he had a landslide. He had a handy bit of timing during a complete collapse in the vote because of lack of confidence in these people that are running our country. And he's hit the ground running like he's got a kind of 80% majority or something, which he hasn't. You know, no one really wanted him. He gained power through deceit and deception, and he's complete fraud.
Well, that'll bring us on to the economic strain and rising costs. With the massive immigration, inflation and costs of living of crisis in the UK is grappling with a significant rise in the cost of living, with food, energy and services becoming increasingly unaffordable for many. This economic pressure isn't just about numbers, it's translating into real hardship, with families cutting back on essentials and a growing reliance on food banks. The government's response, including tax hikes and what some perceive as inadequate support measures, has been criticised for making it worse rather than alleviating the crisis. This situation fuels public dissent, contributing to a broader sense of governmental failure in managing economic policy effectively. What do you see with with the economic strain on you and rising costs?
Well, I mean, that's been a long-term, ongoing thing. Not just since Starmer, excuse the parrots. I mean, you know, the economy of this country has been run appallingly for a couple of generations now. You know, the drift into services and banking industry at the expense of all else has caused a collapse in the productive economy in the UK. We may have, a large GDP, but that's all just, casino money in the city going round and round in circles and not really in any way benefiting, the public or generating any real business. We've collapsed as a nation on that front. And when you dig into, those kind of things, the productivity of Germany and other countries compared to the UK, we are in big trouble. We really only have the banking system and services, and they're all tightly joined together. We failed to invest in training. Pretty much everything has been a con job. The HS2 rail service that was supposed to be coming in was just, hand over fist, billions thrown away to just abandon it, more or less. And the same thing is true of pretty much everything. We've borrowed massively to an insane and criminal degree, particularly during COVID. They tell us that, we're sort of down beneath 10% inflation, but and prices are coming down and inflation is receding, but I haven't seen that. If anything, I've seen exactly the opposite. There seems to be, where they've kept the prices of certain staples down that people would really notice, all of a sudden they're starting to sort of go up. Things like butter and milk and cheese, and they'll go up by 50p a packet or something, for a week or two, and then come back. I think there's a lot of opportunism going on in the food chain. There's a lot of kind of, we have, 3 or 4 large supermarkets in this country, and they pretty much dominate everything. Small retailers, bakers, butchers, veggie shops, etc., have been in massive decline in the UK compared to other European countries. Our high streets transformed, and we pay whatever we need to pay. People have become disconnected from money even more. They just touch to pay with their cards these days, and they've become detached from the value of a pound note, as it were. And it's ruthlessly exploited. I mean, most people don't have the time to sort of look at this stuff. They just see their bill going up overall. But when you look at the cynical way in which retailers manipulate their pricing, I think it's time for, a complete review of how these organizations operate. And the same is true of energy. We're being absolutely robbed at the moment. The wholesale prices have dropped from their peaks, yet we're looking at price rises on fuel this year. And the supposed Labour government has just turned around, cut the winter fuel payments for old age pensioners, and I think they've done something against their manifesto regarding caps and all of that sort of thing. So, we're just being robbed on all fronts. There's a complete lack of opportunity. We've gone from a nation that used to, in the 90s, so 30 years ago, we used to have immigration numbers in the tens of thousands, 90 to 100,000 people a year. And, in the last 2 years of Rishi Sunak's government, they've issued 1 million new national insurance numbers per year to non-EU immigrants. And that's the, the tax office is, the Inland Revenue's own stats. So, that's a large number of people. In 2 years, we're importing, a city the size of Birmingham, and Are we building infrastructure, housing, schools, GP surgeries, training doctors and nurses at a rate that supports a new city the size of Birmingham every 2 years? I don't think we are. I think that Jeremy Hunt cut all the nurses' bursaries when he was health secretary, and caused a complete implosion of healthcare training in this country. As one example.
Okay. What do you think? Any way of fixing it? Or was it too big to fix?
I mean,
or do you need a collapse in the country to start again?
I would say that we are close enough to that situation. I mean, getting a bigger handle on it is obviously, I'm just one guy. But I mean, looking at the increase in our rate of debt, the interest payments on that debt, the number of councils which seem to be, close to bankruptcy, the number of tents and shanty towns that we seem to have popping up all over the place, certainly in London, there's obviously a serious problem. It's something that is certainly not going to be addressed with someone like Keir Starmer, who's hit the ground basically being a terrorist. I mean, he's in 4 weeks, arresting people for Facebook posts. I mean, where the hell are we in this mad reality at the moment? So it doesn't give you a lot of hope to sort of think that this government is capable of sorting it out. I mean, it's all just one big machine, isn't it? Even your sort of populist right. I mean, it's a complete construct of the liberal, neoliberal media. You've got to worry about Tommy and Farage and Tate and all of this. And it's like, well, who's giving the oxygen of publicity to them? The guys who are telling us that they're the guys to worry about. So we've got this completely cartoon reality of, people like Keir Starmer going, oh, the far right. And, everyone who reads The Sun or whatever has got, these sort of pictures of Tommy and his rabble and Tate and his harem and, the camel-haired coat-wearing Farage making a buck out of it all. I mean, it's just like, pantomime, isn't it? So, we can't have a real conversation. We've got all these false prophets and demigods that are getting publicity because, they're idiots or they're just sort of giving such a narrow view on everything. It's really, really quite worrying. I mean, self-censoring is huge and we can't say stuff. We've just gone through Brexit for 6 years where, whilst the vast majority of people didn't want it, we were bombarded that it was the right thing to join. And even now, Keir Starmer's just got in. There's all this sort of camel's noses appearing under the tent flaps of, sort of reintegration and closer blah, blah, and turning a corner on Brexit, which in Keir Starmer's mind seems to be opening up more kind of joining up again. I mean, it's all madness.
I'd like to get on. Sorry.
I don't really see a solution at the moment. We simply don't have an honest media. We don't have an honest political system. I mean, love him or hate him, Jeremy Corbyn, he was weak. He didn't use the opportunities that he had as leader of the Labour Party. He was completely undermined in his pursuit of a kinder, gentler politics. and they ate him alive. And now we've got those people who feasted upon him running the country.
Yeah. I'd like to get on to mental health and crime surge in the UK. There's a noticeable increase in mental health issues, partly due to economic pressures, but also reflecting broader societal stress. The criminal justice system's handling of mental health, where individuals in crisis often end up in police custody due to the lack of appropriate facilities, highlights a system under strain. Concurrently, crime rates, particularly violent and property crimes, are reported to be on the rise, possibly linked to economic desperation and social unrest. This dual challenge of mental health and crime not only strains public services, but also points to a deeper societal issues, including inequality and the breakdown of community support structures. Have you seen the rise in mental health and crime in the UK yourself?
Well, I think that, they're two very separate subjects. I think that...
well, let's do mental health first then.
Right. I think that the problem is like everything else in the NHS, mental health services have been underfunded, but more particularly, it's not just a case of underfunding, it's a great case of mental health has always been something, it's either been tucked away in an institution somewhere or slung out into the street, known as care in the community when Thatcher shut down a lot of the institutions. And there's never been any cohesive plan to manage the mental health care of the people of this country, other than to distill it down into a one-size-fits-all pharmacy, where literally it doesn't matter what you suffer from with mental health issues in this country, you'll get offered SSRIs, antipsychotics, antidepressants, SSRIs, anti-cognitive behavioral therapy, which can be handed out in, 8 or 12 session doses. And, that's pretty much it. And, that's simply not an adequate healthcare model. It's an adequate model if you want to kind of farm it off to franchise it out, but it doesn't mean to say it's an effective system, and it's been going in that direction now for a generation, and it's really falling apart. The wheels are falling off. I think that the existing issues with mental health care and people in crisis not being looked after, they've abandoned in a lot of trusts people in crisis. And unless you have, basically people get really, they're having a mental health episode, and they may do something that would be considered a criminal offence. And they do end up in cells. They might start throwing about their bottle of cider or stuff they're carrying or whatever, or throw something over they picked up in the street, in despair and frustration or whatever, and they will end up in a cell. And if people are sort of, chopping themselves into bits and self-harming, then they might end up in a mental health hospital. But everyone else is just told, tough luck, mate. At best, certainly in my area, they're given a card to a private organisation that's a volunteer service to go and have a chat with, similar to Samaritans. Mm-hmm. And I think in addition to that ongoing crisis within mental health care, we've had an unprecedented situation over the last 4 years where we were literally locked down and had our lives seized from us for a couple of years. And then at the end of that time, we had further uncertainty as to whether that might be put upon us again. And, still to this day, people are, echoing the idea that perhaps another lockdown for this, that, or the other might be necessary, whether it's the climate or people posting spicy memes or some form of pox or other, it's all got a bit insane. And I think that has caused for the vast majority of people a lot of anxiety, stress, and mental health issues. And those aren't the people who are on furlough, who work for councils, who work for the government, who work for the NHS. They still got paid. They've still got their houses. They haven't had to run up their credit cards and use up all their savings, etc., etc. And there's the whole rest of humanity is absolutely, the wheels are coming off in this country. And so, yeah, mental health. I mean, I am literally getting woken up most days these days by someone shouting at dawn in the street, some unfortunate person who has finally lost it. I hear it regularly, and it's something that I used to hear once in a blue moon, literally once in a blue moon. But now it's something that happens 3-4 times a week, literally.
Is there any solutions? Or again, you have to wait until the whole place collapses and start again?
I mean, the issues that are going on in this country, that on one level, everyone's aware of it. Everyone knows that mental health waiting lists are long, that, we have 7 million people on the waiting list for treatment and surgery and stuff like that. But there seems to be this kind of disconnect between, the reality of that on the ground. I mean, we still do have many hundreds of thousands of people working in the NHS. I mean, the NHS hasn't sort of been abandoned. We still have tens of thousands of GPs and doctors and stuff. It just seems that they haven't somehow been very effective for the last decade. Quite how that's happened and how, you've got the public on one side sort of falling apart and waiting on surgery and lives ruined, doctors in the middle still, being paid their salaries, government going, well, tough shit, we're going to have to make more cuts. Where's all the money go? I mean, even if you do have answers and solutions, unless there's a kind of, a public awareness, media that holds power to account, and a functioning democracy, which we do not have at the moment. We absolutely do not have a functioning democracy at the moment. You can't hold opposition at the moment. I mean, love him or hate him, Andrew Bridgen, he raised some valid concerns. Some of his concerns may have been over enthusiastic, perhaps you could say. But the very fact that when we are carrying out such unprecedented moves with medicating and locking down a whole nation, the fact that only one person was standing up in Parliament and saying about this, really, and when it's his turn to stand up and have his moment in Parliament, it seems to be cause for other politicians to exit the chamber. I mean, what the hell is that? What the fuck is that?
And he lost his seat in the recent election as well, right?
He did, yeah. I honestly can't remember how many votes he got, but I do seem to recall that it was a pretty monumental collapse in his support. Yeah.
Okay, on to crime. I see on videos, obviously stabbings. I see people running around with knives on the street, just all sorts of things. People getting assaulted. I see the other day a video of a guy in a pram not in a pram, pushing a pram, getting stabbed in the neck. What's happening there? And do you when you go out, are you fearful?
Right. Well, I mean, that incident with the guy being stabbed in the neck is obviously horrible. You know, that's attempted murder in anyone's book, from what I saw of that clip. I mean, we're a country of 67 million people now. Obviously, anyone getting hurt, stabbed, maimed, injured, or killed is devastating for the families. It's shocking for those that witness it. You know, it ruins lives, and you know that sort of behaviour is unacceptable. But the idea that this country is overrun with kind of just everyone's knifing each other is not the case. I think it's certain parts of the community that, you know, youth parts of the community that tend to carry knives. Well, I mean, putting context to these problems and issues are very difficult because they are used as political weapons. They're used as justification and what have you for all sorts of other wider things.
Okay, how about this? Do you think the UK should have a Second Amendment? People should be able to carry weapons. Guns we're talking about for personal protection. Isn't a polite society an armed society? A polite society an armed society?
You could argue that. I think that unfortunately the
or would you have like the Wild West on the streets there?
I mean, I think at the moment you would have the Wild West because introducing you know, those sort of rights to the current population of the UK, it would be just putting adding petrol to the fire. I guess.
But could you introduce it by, for example, yourself? You'd have to go to some sort of course, gun range, pass that, you know, intensive course, gun safety. Obviously, the firearm would be registered, and then if you pass it, then you get the weapon. Would that help?
I mean, you know,
not just have a shop and go, here, come and buy a gun.
I mean, I believe in the right to bear arms, right? I think that, you know, in the UK where you can't even carry a can of pepper spray to protect yourself, is a crazy situation. The law about, you know, what you can and cannot do to protect yourself in England is really confusing. You know, you see it online all the time on places like Reddit, people just really not knowing, you know, how far they can go in their own home, you know, if someone breaks in, for example. You know, I don't feel comfortable going out because I don't feel, you know, it's at certain times. I mean, in broad daylight, you know, in the middle of the day, you know, not so bad, but certainly after dark around here, I feel a lot less confident than I used to. And, you know, I have had reason to feel that way. You know, it's not just me being over paranoid or whatever.
Okay. And again, any fixes you can think of? Because I've read that, for example, burglaries and all sorts of things, they're not even solved anymore. You just get, like, from the police a ticket, so you can go to your insurance company and you know, and that's it. They don't even bother solving lots of crimes anymore. but they will come around and arrest you for posting on Facebook.
I mean, there's obviously a serious problem with policing in London. I can't speak about anywhere else. Yeah. I think there is, a real problem. There's been this kind of mix of poor leadership, historical accusations of sort of racism and homophobia and all of this, and they've kind of overreacted in this kind of public way, with the rainbow panda cars or squad cars or whatever you call them these days. And, this kind of quite sort of in your face inclusion of gender, gay people basically, I mean, into the police force and sort of somehow made that some sort of issue of policing. It's very, very strange how those aspects of society have become so entwined with these organizations. It's really difficult to sort of understand and make sense of. But
do you have any idea why it happens in the UK and Europe and all that, and the EU, for example, but it doesn't happen here in Belarus? Because we can go out at any time in the mornings, 3, 4 o'clock, walk into a dark park, have money hanging out of your pocket, and nothing's going to happen at all. Nothing. And same in Dubai. When I was there, it's very, very, very safe there. None of that is tolerated. It's just that's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got much more liberal laws and attitudes in this country, and the expectation of the people that make these rules is that if you ask people to be kind, they will be.
Because I saw today in the Telegraph, if you do a violent crime in the UK, as long as you say sorry, they'll let you off. Did you see that?
No, I haven't read that. I can't really comment on that. I mean,
has there been an increase in the prison population in the UK? And if so, why do you think that's happened? Besides social media protests, posts.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of reporting about...
and the overcrowding where they're having to let out people on release early.
Yeah, I mean, there are reports that, we are at capacity in UK jails. I think the idea that they're, releasing rapists before their term's up might be a bit exaggerated. I think that, they will be looking at people near the end of their terms, and they'll be looking at less serious offenders before, releasing murderers onto the street. So, there is probably a little bit of kind of overreaction to that. I mean, no doubt, if they say they are going to release prisoners early, then there are going to be criminals who are going to be let out before their time. But I mean, what you do as time in prison and what you're sentenced to in this country are two very separate things. I mean, you generally only serve half your sentence unless it's violent or terrorism or sex crimes and things like that. And then I believe it's more like 80% of the tariff, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But I would stand to be corrected on those numbers. But currently, we are at capacity. We have had our current prison population, let me just tell you. At the moment, we have nearly 90,000 people in jail. Well, in fact, we've got more than 90,000 people if you include Scotland Island, but it's nearly now 90,000 in England and Wales.
Let's round it off to 100,000. What would that be a percentage of the current population of the UK then?
Well, it's 670,000 would be 1%. So
it's not like a US where it's a high percentage.
No, but our numbers of people in prison has gone up in 30 years. It's doubled.
Hmm.
You know, in 1994, there were 48,000 people in prison in England and Wales. And now, as I said, this year, we're up to close to 100,000.
So why do you think it's increased so much?
Well, the prison population doubling in 30 years is something that really, you know, needs explaining. I think that more alarmingly is that, you know, in the last 3 years, it's gone up by 10%, which really does need looking at.
Is that due to the economic situation going down, or is it because of, controversial immigration?
You know, I really can't be led on that. You know, I don't know what the last sort of 3 years intake of ethnicity or breakdown of crime has been. So without looking at that, I couldn't possibly say. But I think that, you know, if any sort of stable society is seeing a 10% increase in its population over its prison population in just 3 years, then that should be a cause for concern and public debate and, you know, investigation, rather than, you know, making more laws to lock people up for spicy memes, you know. No, we have a serious policing issue in this country. You know, crime clear-up rates in London are just a complete joke. You know, but you hear police flying around all day and night, sirens going. The helicopters are up every night in London as well, every single night. So, I mean, they're busy doing something. I don't know what. They are obviously nicking more people because, you know, our prison population is exploding. But what exactly, I do not know.
Yeah, I've just looked up on X on using the AI, and it said in 2019, 27% of the prison population identified as Black, Asian, or from a minority group. And then the Black prisoners make up 12% of the prison population. Muslim prisoners, 17% of the prisoners, and white prisoners, obviously, a majority.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some slightly different stats for that. I think overall, Indigenous British people, it was something like 78%. But I'm not sure how that was exactly derived. There seems to be a couple of sets of numbers flying about. I mean, there is no doubt that, you know, something is wrong. I mean, this issue of religion in jails and stuff as well is kind of worrying. I mean, the whole idea of religion being mixed up in civil society and the way that it seems to have been weaponized and is being used to divide us, you know, all of this Labour anti-Semitism stuff and, you know, all of this kind of whipping up in the media of all these kind of issues with Muslims and all of that. I mean, obviously someone somewhere is trying to cause division and, you know, causing that division over religion, which is something that should be just like, if you want to practice religion and pray to some form of sky fairy, real or imagined, it's up to you, but it certainly shouldn't dictate our laws, how we run our country, and certainly shouldn't be the driving force of driving people like Jeremy Corbyn sort of to the backbenches of politics.
Yeah, I read there's about 100 Sharia courts in the UK now.
Yeah, I read that as well. And
don't you think there should be just one set of laws and courts instead of having dual?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, if you're going to have Sharia courts, and there's up in Stamford, they've got Hasidic Jews who have their own sort of little volunteer forces and stuff as well. I mean, if you imagine people on a, Leicester council estate, doing something similar along the lines of right British Christians, then, all hell would break loose, wouldn't it? The liberal media would be clutching at their pearls in horror at such an idea of having, I mean, where do you draw the line?
What happened to that big super prison they were building? Because there was all the talk during COVID that they were going to lock up all the anti-COVID people in there, or the dissenters. What happened to that prison? It's supposed to hold thousands and thousands of people. It's not online yet?
I have no idea about the state of prison building contracts. I know that they were building a few. I think their aim was to increase prison capacity by 25%.
Do you think it's gone up because of money? Because it's privatized? The prison,
absolutely,
prison population?
Yeah. I mean,
we'll throw you in because we're going to make more money out of you?
I mean, it's an interesting area because, I mean, I don't know what your views are on running penal institutions, but I absolutely don't think that it should be run by private companies because, it'll end up as slave farms.
Yeah, well, prisons and also like health and all that shouldn't be private, should it? Yeah.
I think education, health, schools, and basic road infrastructure, and perhaps even there is an argument for power because, I mean, certainly in the UK, we've got this mad situation where we import
and water
a lot of our oil and gas and energy and have ships full of wood pellet pulp coming over for the Drax plant, etc. And we have our own North Sea oil reserves.
And hundreds and hundreds of years of fairly clean coal.
Yeah, I mean, that goes down the old in zero carbon, environmental rabbit hole.
How are they going to keep pushing that? Because the latest studies showing that the oceans are actually cooling now.
I mean,
are they running out of time to make money out of this?
Climate change happens. The ice records show that we go through hot periods and cold periods, and the current one that we are, or current state that we are in within climate change as a planet, is something that we absolutely have no capacity to say whether it is good, bad, whether it's anthropomorphic or whatever. I mean, we have, unknown quantities of volcanoes under the sea farting out their emissions on a daily basis. The idea is that domesticated cattle and things like that are causing a collapse of the atmosphere when, before man came along, the plains of various continents ran with buffalo and antelope and, thousands and upon thousands of animals that breathed, shitted out and created all their emissions. The idea that...
so you're saying taxes will not fix the climate crisis, as they say?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I think that the original idea of environmentalism and treating the earth kindly and using it in a sustainable way are all worthy things, but they've been weaponized, stolen from their true cause, and made into a globalist fifth generation warfare weapon, that tax us all.
Yeah, and
the air that we breathe, I mean.
Well, President Lukashenko, when he was at Dubai for that COP meeting, said, if you want less pollution and things, how about stopping the wars?
Yeah. I mean,
who doesn't want clean water, clean air, and all that? That's fine, stopping the pollution, but you're not going to change what's happening with the planet, when it wants to cool or heat up.
Yeah, no, I really don't think that I think we should be responsible. I don't think that we should, abandon carbon scrubbers and, things that remove pollutants out of, say, coal-fired generating power stations. I think we should use, our knowledge and technology to do things as cleanly as possible, but simply abandoning their use in the Western world because, of climate change, whilst, countries, I mean, that China has the 100-year marathon at the moment as its long-term, sort of countrywide vision. And part of that is to become the, dominant industrial and military power on planet Earth. And, they're building coal power stations, they're building nuclear stations, they're building solar. People in the news in the last few days have been going, oh, China's now doing something or other with its alternative generation that, puts everyone else to shame. But they forget to mention that they're also building hundreds of new coal power stations as well. They're using a mix of whatever it takes to get their industrial economy where they want it to be, and in the meantime, Germany's sort of lost their main gas pipeline and going, oh, I don't know who blew it up, and deindustrializing. It's crazy, and Europe is being forced into a situation by America.
If you haven't heard, it's 4 Ukrainians on a little boat that blew it up.
I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, I know. I just thought thing in there.
I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know how deep those pipelines were.
80 meters. 80 meters.
80. Yeah, no fucking way 3 drunken sailors are doing that.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Mate, I mean, it's just 80 meters is some serious diving.
Yeah, exactly.
And, to be able to place anything on an armored, concreted sort of, these things are built like pretty heftily, it's national infrastructure. It's not just some hose at the end of your garden, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, making sense of all of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just looked up and they said 70 to 90 meters deep. So there you go.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that is some serious sort of depth that would require very specialist operations.
Exactly. And they weren't seen on the most surveilled area.
And I mean, at the time, they had radar and other data from American vessels in that area, didn't they?
Exactly. At
the time. I mean, it's pretty obvious to anyone with a kind of
brain,
half a brain and a bit of critical thought to see what's going on. To me, it just looks like America is simply trying to completely undermine Europe and Russia as a an economic competitor. I mean, what's happened in Germany to me just defies any sense of logic at all. It really, really does. Just they're just throwing themselves under the bus so hard.
Exactly.
It just beggars belief. It really does. I mean, I suppose you could speculate it's some sort of psychological societal guilt thing that they just sort of, they can't get a grip of themselves and manage to see the bigger picture because their World War II shame or something is still ingrained in their society.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that because if you ever look at the newspapers in Germany, they're all hailing their tanks and armoured vehicles going into Kursk again.
Yeah.
And all in the same way.
It's all madness. It's all absolute madness. And I mean, discussing that in the UK at the moment, I mean, it's something that you really have to choose who you speak to about it. The narrative of the, purely it's just Putin invading so he can take over Europe and dominate everything kind of idea that most people have. And, they seem to not understand about the Minsk agreements and the history of all of this, why Russia went into Ukraine. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it really, I have to say that, the first bit of lockdown was probably the most surreal. It's like all of a sudden you're living in the middle of 28 days later type of just really mind wobbling things going on in this country. And the last sort of 2 months has felt pretty much the same. But I think because we've all been through this kind of life-changing kind of, can this really be real type of stuff with the COVID, etc., that people have become a little desensitized. I mean, you can only sort of go through it, that sort of level of, questioning reality at that level once, I think, and then it's just like, oh, here we go again, and it feels very much like that at the moment in the UK. It really does. And what you can do about it and who you can speak to about it. I mean, I feel completely hamstrung. I think there's anyone who's kind of been a bit sort of anti-establishment and spoken out and pointed out the emperor's new clothes and any of these kind of things, is sitting around half thinking at the moment, am I going to sort of find myself being minority reported for a tweet I did 3 years ago or something, There is an atmosphere being created along those lines at the moment in this country, it feels like.
Okay, last question for you. Do you think the money spent on Ukraine and foreign aid should be spent in the UK?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that we're engaging in this craziness, this proxy war on behalf of America, effectively, at the risk of turning Europe into a nuclear crisp, seems insane. And, it's this kind of, well, Putin's a bad guy and blah, 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 so we must fight on is just absolutely insane. But obviously, lots of American companies like Raytheon, etc., are making lots of money out of it. It's the military-industrial complex. And it's pretty much going to destroy Germany. I mean, how are they going to fuel their Porsche factories?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, Germany's already moved to America, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly.
A German man, the Bavarian Motorworks is moving to fucking America so they can carry on making cars.
Yeah, Audis are mainly made in Mexico now.
Mm.
So there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, Europe's been overrun by some, crazy agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Okay then. Well, Drew, thank you for being on the show. It's really appreciated. Again, where can people catch you on social media, X and YouTube? Once more.
Let Me Look TV on all social media.
So if anybody out there, go and subscribe to him on X and YouTube. Thanks again.
Cheers, mate.
In another story that touches the intersection of free speech, privacy and the law unfolding across the Atlantic in Germany, Gab's stand against German police inquiry. In a move that's stirring debate over freedom of speech versus legal accountability, Gab, the social media platform known for its free speech stance, has firmly rejected a request from the German authorities. The request to hand over user data linked to posts allegedly insulting Ricarda Lang, a prominent member of the German Bundestag. This is her. The incident is a Gab user reportedly described Lang as fat and made other comments deemed offensive. German law, under its criminal code, considers such remarks as insults, potentially punishable by imprisonment or fines. What happened when we grew up was sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Andrew Torber, Gab's CEO, has publicly announced their refusal to comply with the German Federal Criminal Police Office's demand for user information. This includes everything from IP addresses to payment details, aiming to identify and potentially prosecute the individual behind the posts. This situation highlights a clash between Germany's strict laws on insult and defamation and the American ethos of free speech, which Gab claims protects such expressions. Critics argue that this could set a precedent for international legal overreach into digital privacy, while supporters of the government action see it as a necessary step to protect public figures from harassment. The refusal by Gab not only protects users' privacy, but also challenges the extraterritorial application of German law on American platforms. It raises questions about how far a country's legal jurisdiction extends in the digital realm and the balance between free speech and personal honor. This case could have broader implications for how social media platforms handle user data requests from foreign governments, potentially influencing future policies on privacy, data sovereignty, and freedom of expression. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor this developing story where the lines between legal accountability, privacy, and free speech are being withdrawn. What do you think? We now shine a light on the lesser-known figure in the tech world, yet one who's central to the major international incident. Meet Nikola Durov, the brother of Telegram's founder Pavel Durov, and a mathematical genius now in the crosshairs of the French authorities. Both Pavel and Nikola Durov are subjects to an arrest warrant issued by France, sparking intrigue over the exactly has drawn the attention of the law authorities. In an interview with Tucker Carlson, Pavel described Nikola as a prodigy, solving cubic equations by the age of 10 and clinching multiple gold medals at International Math Olympiad. Nikola holds 2 PhDs in mathematics, specializing in encryption. Nikola's expertise was pivotal in creating Telegram's encryption standard in 2013, initially designed for personal use between the brothers to evade surveillance. This evolved in what we know today as Telegram, a platform championing privacy and free speech. He's also behind the Telegram's open network, TON, a blockchain project aimed at decentralizing internet services, showcasing his forward-thinking approach to technology. The Durov brothers launched VK in 2006, Russia's answer to Facebook, while Pavel is often credited with the platform's inception, vast data storage systems. After selling his VK stake, Pavel left Russia in 2000 suit by resigning from VK but remaining in Russia. His current role as a senior research fellow at the Stekolov Mathematical Institute highlights his continuing dedication to pure mathematics. The reason behind the French pursuit of Nikola remains murky, but his involvement in Telegram, a platform often at odds with governmental surveillance, might provide clues. His expertise in encryption and privacy technologies could be seen as a threat by those who prioritize security over privacy. Nikola Durov's story isn't just about his mathematical genius or his contributions to tech. It's a narrative of privacy, freedom, and the ongoing battle between individual rights and the state control in the digital age of tyranny. Vomit at the attacker. German state TV published suggestions how to fend off an attacker after the stabbing attack that killed 3 people in Solingen. Escape techniques to irritate and distract the attacker. Number 1, scream as loud as you can. Pocket alarms are also recommended. Number 2, disgust puts the whole organism on alert. Simulate that you have to vomit in the direction of the person that's about to stab you. Number 3, simulate a serious illness such as a heart attack, epileptic seizure, or sudden blindness. There you go. That'll stop you getting stabbed. Just coming in, it looks like Israel's moving armor to the border of Lebanon. Also in the West Bank, Israel is now in there destroying sewage systems, water systems, etc. From this video, watch this.
توقفت الآليات العسكرية وبدأت الجرافات في هذه اللحظات بالتقدم رويدا. هنا نرصد الجرافة الأخرى التي تقوم بالتجريف للبنى التحتية في هذه اللحظات. لربما المصور ينقل لنا الجرافة الأخرى التي تقوم بأعمال التجريف للبنى التحتية هنا عند دوار المحاكم أو دوار اليونس عفوا في الأجزاء الشمالية من المدينة، والتدمير واسع على ما يبدو أن الجيش الاحتلال يبدأ أو ينوي من هذه العملية العسكرية تدمير البنى التحتية، ليس فقط الوصول للعناصر والأذرع العسكرية لفصائل المقاومة، وإنما لتدمير البنى التحتية من شبكات الصرف الصحي والمياه والكهرباء في مناطق عدة في مدينة طول كرم. وأثناء
Isn't destroying them a war crime? As we come to the end of the show, here's our favorite section. You won't see that in Belarus. Okay, starting the USA. This is in California. Bloods meet Bloods.
What's up, Blood?
Oh, hey! What are you doing?
How you doing?
I don't know this.
Gang. I know. You gotta talk.
Still in California, a crackhead goes for a ride.
Get her milk, you heard? Yo, mommy, you bugging. Yo, mommy, you bugging. Yo, Sponge. Mommy, you wildin', mommy. Nah, she got grown up. I'm gonna hook off on you, mommy. I'm done. Yo, get off, yo. Get off, chill, though. Yo, mommy, you wildin', mommy. Nah, she got roller. She got off on you, mommy. I'm done.
And again in California, a woman on the street, in the middle of the street, lying down. Mental illness has taken over the country. Skipping over the pond, we're in France, in Marseille. Going south in Spain, Barcelona, pickpockets and the public are at odds with each other. Back over the pond into Canada, now there's vending a machine for drug paraphernalia. You can buy a crack pipe.
Yep.
So now we can learn how to snort cocaine with this informational video right here. So I'm outside the Nanaimo Hospital, and I was able to get a crack inhalation kit and a cocaine snorting kit. Unfortunately, the crack pipes were out, which is no surprise because crack pipes can be traded for drugs. All of these items you can get for free at a vending machine located just directly over there outside of the Nanaimo Hospital emergency room.
Okay, we're back in the UK, and you think France was bad with the rubbish? This is Birmingham. This is between the houses. Waste pile can be seen from space. Of course, if you need a job, there's one going in Newbury in the UK. It's a drug dealer. This is actually on the Indeed website for a job, and you can apply from your phone. £10,000 a month you can make. Sell as many as you can, and do not get caught as you're on your own. Job type is full-time, salary £10,000 a month, location Newbury, required experience dealing for 2 years, and the required license or certification, you need a criminal record. Still in the UK, this is taken in Camden Town in London. Is a scooter a deadly weapon?
Okay, good job. Lo साड़ियों से कहीं नत करी हफ्तेला.
Over the weekend in London, the Notting Hill Carnival was held, and here's some videos from that. You won't see this in Belarus.
Notting Hill, London.
And lastly, in the UK, in London again, Liverpool Street Station subway, although as we call it in the UK, the tube. And still in the EU, but in the EU, in Denmark, a Danish 17-year-old girl who used pepper spray to fight off a rapist near the migrant asylum centre is told she will be prosecuted for carrying a weapon. And you don't see any of that in Belarus. And before we go, this is the "there are no conspiracy theories" theory.
Theory that there are no conspiracies, the version of reality that we're all being asked to believe. Politicians and billionaires don't work together to protect corporate interests. Politicians making decisions to funnel billions of dollars in taxpayer money to conflict zones has nothing to do with how profitable that is for the military-industrial complex. Billionaires who own weapons manufacturing corporations or other war profiteering companies donating to super PACs who donate to those politicians has nothing to do with why those politicians make the decisions they make. Those same politicians often being personally invested in those companies also has nothing to do with them making the decisions they make. See, that just can't be true, because that would mean that we're voting for people who are murdering people for profit, and well, that would make us culpable. So we have to believe in the version of reality where the suffering that's going on over there has nothing to do with the profiting that's going on over here. Resource-wealthy developing nations constantly being destabilized and taken over by corrupt leaders willing to play ball with Western corporations at the expense of their own people is also a coincidence. That's just corruption happening over there. That has nothing to do with the West. The fact that Western corporations are the ones profiting the most from those circumstances doesn't mean that those Western corporations are actually actively doing anything to help create those circumstances. The fact that the worst times always end up being the best times for the richest people is also a coincidence. Financial crashes and pandemics always seeming to lead to situations where the wealthiest people among us end up doubling their net worth is a complete coincidence. And the fact that it keeps happening that way doesn't indicate any sort of discernible pattern. There is no conspiracy. That's my favorite conspiracy theory. The powerful people aren't working together to consolidate and perpetuate their own power at the expense of everybody. The fact that all of history makes it look that way is a coincidence. It's not my favorite conspiracy theory because I think it's true, but because that is maybe the most batshit crazy way to interpret reality I can think of, and yet it's one of the most common ways.
Okay, that's it for the show tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on Sunday on show number 74. Please like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you then. Bye.